Hello there, I'm Jamain Hatton. This is The Recap. The Recap is my take on an online podcast that explains for our students of literature poems that appear in the CXC English B syllabus years 2018 to 2023. Today is the 17th day of September in the year 2017. We are looking at the poem Birdshooting Season by Olive Senior. I am dedicating this one to Miss Marcia Studies that requested this poem a very long time ago on the YouTube channel. I'm finally having some time to do this one for you. Hope you enjoy this review. For persons who have been asking me why I've not been posting like I used to, well, I have recently started medical school at the University of Guyana School of Medicine. It has been taking up a very lot of my time. I'm finally having some time though to do some things I enjoy, like posting reviews of poems in the English syllabus. So, if you're looking for a career in medicine, I would recommend the University of Guyana School of Medicine. Alright, check that out. So, who exactly is Olive Senior? Olive Senior is Jamaican. She has won many awards for her poetry as well as her stories. She is 75 years old, I think, and most of her work talks about the Caribbean identity in terms of gender as well as ethnicity. Most of her work surrounds girls, and she's showing you just how different girls are when compared to men and boys. And this poem here, Bird Shooting Season, this is no exception. You will see just how Olive Senior beautifully shows the compassionate nature of women. Alright, so we're going straight into Bird Shooting Season by Olive Senior. Bird shooting season, Olive Senior. Bird shooting season, the men make marriages with their guns. My father's house turns macho, as from far the hunters gather. All night long, contentless women stir their brews. Hot coffee, chocolate, cerasee, rapone, and tie leaf for tomorrow's sport. Tonight, the men drink white rum neat. In darkness, shouldering their packs, their guns, they leave. We stand quietly on the doorstep shivering. Little boys longing to grow up bird hunters too. Little girls whispering, "Fly, birds, fly." So we start the poem by looking at a repetition of the title briefly. Bird shooting season, the men make marriages with their guns. And we're seeing an alliteration, men, M, make, M, marriages, M, macho, M. So we're seeing a repetition of that consonant sound there, make, marriages, macho, men. And what is that telling us? The phrase is telling us that the men devoted time and care into preparing these guns for the event, for the bird shooting event. And the next line is saying, my father's house turns macho. Macho gives us the idea of how manly it was. And at that time, the men from all across the area would have gathered at this house. And them were there, and it appeared so macho, it appeared so masculine. Alright? So who is the speaker here? The speaker is obviously a child, and by the phrase "my father's house" is telling us that the one of the men was actually the child's father. All right, and it might appear as though it's a female speaker, but let's go on to see what it's actually mentioning here in the poem. As far the hunters gather, so the hunters came from a very far place to just gather by the father's house in preparation to go out the next day. It goes on to say, all night long, contentless women stir their brews. What does that contentless tell us? It tells us a very important thing. Remember I told you earlier that Olive Senior spent most of her time talking about how unequal society, or the Caribbean society, was. This is what she's presenting here, the contentless women. So these women were obviously not, they were not in agreement with the men actually going shooting birds. They were obviously hurt by it, but they were not voicing that hurt. They were not saying how they feel. They couldn't have said how they felt. And that is what is presented when they say contentless women. Yes, they were discontented, but they could not have voiced that opinion for obvious reasons. Men, of course, being angry at them or probably hit at them or that sort. That's what the obvious reason I'm talking about there. Sturdier brews. So now they're showing us sturdier brews and they're preparing food for them. They're preparing meals for them. Sturdier brews, hot coffee, chocolate, cerasi, rapone, Thai leaf. They're showing you how these women were reduced to subservient roles. These women were not active in the life of the Caribbean household. They were not active in and having a say as to what goes on in the Caribbean household. And as a result, what they had to do was the woman's job. And the woman's job, what they're trying to show us in the poem here, was just to prepare meals, was just to take care of the house, and so on. So Olive is trying to show us that the Caribbean household was somewhat a patriarchal society. All right, so the patriarchal society is where the man is the dominant force in the home. The women have nothing really to say. All right, so it says that for tomorrow's sport. So they're saying that the bird shooting season was actually a sport. All right, and it says tonight the men drink rum, white rum neat. And that's very important. It's telling us that the women were busy doing all of this, and what the men did, all they did was sat down and they were enjoying doing nothing. They were enjoying themselves doing nothing while the women were working hard. Shows us again how one-sided the society might have been at that time. So it's showing us that the women were hard working and the men had the luxury of sitting down enjoying drinking rum. The poem goes on to say, in darkness, shouldering their packs, their guns, they leave. The they they're talking about here is obviously the men, and they're leaving in the dark. So just before the sun rose, they're leaving. They're leaving home to go to bird hunt. They're going to look at the man thing, the man sport of shooting birds. Alright, so what they're going to do is obviously leave their family behind, their families behind, and they're going to do this man thing, this thing that make them macho. Alright, so it says we stand quietly on the doorstep shivering. The we obviously is the children. I would think as well the women, the mothers were also there. So we stood there shivering, and the shivering, we can take it in so many angles, but primarily it was shivering. They were shivering because of the cold, that's one, and the women or the girls were shivering because of fright for not the men, but fright because of the girls, because of the birds rather, and they hadn't the bravery to say or to shout, no, don't do this, you cannot kill the birds. But it shows again how girls appear helpless in the patriarchal society, and that is just how Olive brilliantly shows how it used to be. I'm saying used to be because now, well, just recently Jamaica had a female prime minister, so it's showing us that women are not voiceless anymore, but the women are actually taking up leadership roles, right? So it used to be that way, and that was what Madame Olive is showing us here. So let's go back. We stand quietly on the doorstep shivering, little boys, and that's a brilliant line, little boys longing to grow up bird hunters. And that is telling us what? Their boys wanted to be just like their fathers. And they wanted to be brutal, and they wanted to continue to stamp in the society the patriarchal way of things. And they wanted to stamp in the authority of how men are supposed to be the heads of the home, and they must not only be the heads of the home, but the women are not allowed to say anything at all in the home. So that's a lot there is actually showing us not just they wanted to be bird hunters, but they wanted to gravitate to the roles of the father, or the roles that they see their father stamping out in the home. And it goes on to say little girls whispering. That word whispering, brilliant. It's just simply brilliant. It's telling us what? That the child was obviously not, or the girls were obviously not empowered to say what they want to say. They were afraid. They were afraid because they might have probably been yelled at, they might have probably been beaten, so they hadn't the bravery to utter those words out loud, so they had to whisper. And that is showing us just how Olive saw the Jamaican culture a while ago, and she often used child's point of view, that is, to criticize adults in society. And she was questioning in this poem, questioning the roles of women in society. Because what the women were doing, they were just preparing food. They were in mediocre positions. They weren't allowed to have a say as to what is going on. But now we see all of that is changing, and women are taking up leadership roles, and women are doing active things in society. But this poem here, Alice Senior's beautiful poem, Birdshooting Season, was really showing us how women are voiceless, or women were voiceless, and how much the men were in control of all that is going on, and they remove the voice of women and made it a patriarchal society. Themes from this poem: nature, patriarchal society, childhood experiences. Remember, they're hunting birds, they're obviously damaging nature, they're obviously killing wildlife, and patriarchal society, just because how macho this bird hunting season appeared and how macho men were in the household, and they were not allowed, or women were not allowed, to voice their opinion whether they disagree with the hunt. They were not allowed to do so, but they were actually only allowed to prepare food. They were only allowed to do the work of a female in the house, or they were only allowed to do feminine tasks. Right? Child experiences, yes, because we know that the child is obviously the speaker in the poem, and he or she is recounting what used to happen while they were growing up. Go ahead, give me a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think of the review, and tell me what else you want to hear next. When I have some time, I'll be happy to do that review for you. Goodbye.